Heartwarming revelation, Billionaire's dying wife's unexpected last wish for Nanny to marry him. Mark sat on the edge of his bed, the faint light of dawn spilling through the window, casting shadows on the wall that seemed to dance around him. Just months ago, he had shared this space with Sarah, his beloved wife, who had filled their home with laughter and love. Now, he was a single father, grappling with grief while trying to raise his two young children alone. The laughter was gone, replaced by an echo of silence that felt unbearable. Each day was a struggle, each moment was a reminder of what was lost. In their charming suburban neighborhood, whispers floated about Mark. But his children needed help, and soon he hired Mia, a warm-hearted nanny with a contagious smile. With her nurturing spirit, she quickly bonded with Lily and Jake. The first day she walked in, it was like a burst of sunlight shone through the dark clouds. She played with them, cooked meals, and even shared stories that brought a soft sparkle back to kids' eyes. Mark watched from a distance, a mixture of relief and sorrow swelling within him. He never thought he'd find comfort in someone else's presence, but Mia's warmth slowly breathed life back into their home. But life had its twists. Far away, the glamorous world of billionaire Charles was unraveling in a different way. His terminally ill wife, Caroline, lay nestled in satin sheets, her voice barely above a whisper yet imbued with an urgency that echoed through the grand halls of their mansion. "Promise me, Charles," she said, her eyes filled with unshed tears. "Find joy again. Love someone who embodies kindness, someone like Mia." The juxtaposition of their opulent lifestyle against Mark's austere reality couldn't have been more pronounced. While Mark struggled to keep the faith alive, Caroline yearned to secure her husband's happiness through unconventional means. As Mark prepared for a local charity gala, the entire town's elite would be in attendance. He reflected on the bittersweet nature of loss, feeling the weight of Sarah's memory pressing down on his chest. Would honoring her mean never moving on? Just as he was wrestling with these thoughts, Charles, through a twist of fate, was beginning to see Mia in a different light, a spark of something real in the midst of their contrasting lives. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. At the charity gala, the air was thick with potential and uncertainty. Mark, dressed in his best suit, felt out of place among tuxedos and silk dresses. The mingling laughter felt like daggers, each chuckle a reminder of the emptiness that had taken root in his heart. But the focus shifted when Charles cornered him, a look of disdain shadowed by suspicion. "What do you see in someone like her?" he sneered, cutting Mark to the core. That moment ignited a fierce confrontation. Mark felt his hands clench, torn between the honor of Sarah's memory and the undeniable connection he felt with Mia. As the guests drew closer, whispers filled the air, a community grappling with the clashing ideals of love across socio-economic barriers. Was it wrong to find happiness again? And what of Mia? As the orchestra played a melodious tune, Mark gathered the courage to confront his fears. Could he really let go of the past? In the quiet of the swirling chaos, a single question lingered in his heart: what does it truly mean to love again? As the night grew heavy with anticipation, they both stood at the cusp of something that could change everything. Mark's heart raced. The tension hung thick as autumn leaves, crisp and heavy with unspoken words. He turned from Charles, seeking refuge in the crowd that twirled around him like a whirlwind of laughter and clinking glasses. Yet no matter how he tried to drown out his thoughts, they echoed louder in his mind. What does it mean to love again? He spotted Mia across the room, her laughter like music that flowed through the air, drawing the attention of both children and adults alike. She seemed genuinely happy, a foreign concept that felt both thrilling and terrifying to Mark. Could her warmth really fill the empty corners of his heart? He took a deep breath and made his way toward her, dodging guests and elegantly dressed couples. As he approached, her eyes lit up, and for a brief moment, it felt like the world faded away. "Hey, you," she greeted, her voice bright and inviting. "Are you having fun?" "Fun?" he replied, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just trying to find my footing in this sea of tuxedos." Mia chuckled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "You clean up nicely, though. You belong here." Her innocent compliment nudged something deep inside him, an unfamiliar warmth that sparked hope. Mark hesitated, the veil of grief settling over him again. "I don't know if I belong anywhere anymore." The words slipped out before he could catch them. Mia sensed the shift and her expression softened. "You belong with your kids," she said gently. "And maybe it's time to think about what you want, too." Her voice was steady, like a lighthouse guiding him through stormy waters. Charles watched from a distance, irritation brimming in his eyes as he remarked to a passing guest, "It's outrageous, really. He's only getting in the way of what Caroline wanted for me." Yet, even he couldn't ignore the flicker of jealousy that sparked in his chest at the sight of Mia effortlessly pulling Mark back from the edge of despair. "I just don't want to forget her," Mark admitted, barely above a whisper. The heaviness of the moment pressed on his heart, lingering like a ghost that refused to depart. "Loving again doesn't mean forgetting her," Mia replied, her gaze unwavering. "You can carry her memory and still make space for new feelings. Love can evolve." Those words hung in the air, suffused with possibility. He wanted to believe her, to let hope seep back into his life. Yet, the fear of betrayal loomed large. The fragile thread that connected his past to the potential future felt precarious. Just then, the orchestra shifted to a slow waltz, and Mia extended her hand. "Dance with me?" Mark hesitated, his heart pounding as every eye seemed fixed on them. What if they were just play acting in a world that didn't understand? But her smile was warm, encouraging, and the moment felt electric. The thought of denying that spark felt wrong. He took her hand, feeling an unexpected rush of courage. Together, they stepped into the flowing movement of the dance, and for the first time since Sarah's passing, he felt the weight of the world shift. The music wrapped around them, a cocoon that held his doubts at bay. The moment was fragile and beautiful, filled with potential. Mark spun her gently, looking into her eyes, and for a heartbeat, everything else slipped away. Would this be the first step toward something real? Just as Mia leaned closer, a distant voice rang out, shattering the fragile atmosphere. "Mark! We need you over here." The world rushed in, and Mark was faced again with their reality. The lonely path of moving on loomed before him, but as he held Mia's hand, he felt a flicker of hope ignite. What would it take for him to let someone in again? And just as he opened his heart to that thought, the door creaked open wider than he'd ever imagined. Could love truly blossom from the ashes of despair? Mark felt a jolt at the shouted call, the dance abruptly interrupted as Mia released his hand. The spell was broken, laughter and chatter poured back into his ears, drowning out the sweet notes of the waltz. He glanced reluctantly over his shoulder, where a cluster of guests awaited him with expectant, eager expressions. "Excuse me," he murmured to Mia, his heart still racing. She nodded, her smile lingering like a beacon even as he stepped away. Mark wove his way through the crowd, each step feeling heavier than the last. The conversation that awaited him didn't bring the same warmth Mia had. "Where were you, Mark?" "We're discussing the fundraising plans for the new center," Charles said, his tone edged with irritation. "We can't afford to lose focus now. You know Caroline wouldn't have wanted that." Mark clenched his jaw at the mention of Sarah, memories rushing in her laughter, her endless optimism. That same laughter once filled their home, but now it felt like a distant echo. He wanted to tell Charles that he was more than just a caretaker of Caroline's dreams, that he had a life too, a heart that deserved a chance to love again. "Yeah, I know. Sorry, Mark replied, forcing the words out through gritted teeth. What's the plan? As the group discussed details, Mark's thoughts drifted back to Mia. She looked so at ease, vibrant amongst the crowd, and it struck him how he had always admired that about her. He allowed himself a moment, picturing her smile, the way her eyes sparkled when she laughed. It was too soon, he told himself. But was it? Finally, the chatter waned and Charles looked at him with a focused intensity. We need to move on this quickly. You're the key to getting everyone on board. Mark nodded but felt their gaze was less about partnership and more about expectation. The weight pressed down on him, making it hard to breathe as if he were suffocating beneath their ambitions. He couldn't shake the feeling that they wanted him to be a ghost of the man he once was, a mere shadow lingering for the sake of Sarah's legacy. As the night wore on, he found moments to steal glances at Mia, who was now mingling with others, genuinely connecting. He admired the effortless way she moved, her laughter infectious, pulling in everyone around her like a magnet. It ate at him. How could he feel so anchored by grief one moment, and so liberated by hope the next? Later in the evening, as the orchestra played another tune, he caught Mia's eye again, and she beckoned him with an inviting gesture. His heart raced. Stepping closer felt like stepping into unknown territory still charged with the ghost of his past but drawn by the promise of something fresh and exhilarating. Want to try again? She asked when he reached her, a teasing glint in her eyes. We can't just dance, can we? He said, a half-smile tugging at his lips, the weight of uncertainty still looming. Why not? Life's too short for what-ifs, she replied, her voice steady and filled with an earnestness that made his heart flutter. Mark hesitated, searching Mia's face. There was no judgment, just openness. The challenge hung in the air between them. Could he dance with her, step into this moment, risk awakening feelings he thought were buried forever? Every instinct screamed caution, but something deeper ached for courage, for connection. He took a deep breath, steadied himself, and clasped her hand once more. All right, let's dance. As they moved, the tension began to melt away like frost in spring. With every step, every sway, life felt a little brighter, a little less daunting. Mark's heart swelled as he began to realize that perhaps moving forward didn't mean erasing the past. Just as he spun her around, voices from across the room pierced through his momentary bliss. Did you hear? Caroline's last wish was for Charles to find someone like Sarah. Mark felt frozen, the whisper like an icy wind cutting through his newfound warmth. What did that mean for him? What if Charles were never meant to be the man to fulfill that wish? He stared at Mia, her expressions fluid and expressive, and suddenly he wondered, was it time for him to unravel the secrets he'd held so tightly? Mark's heart raced, a sense of urgency prickling at the back of his mind. The mention of Caroline's wish lingered in the air, heavy and charged with unspoken possibilities. He looked at Mia, whose face was bright with laughter just a moment ago, now replaced by a mixture of concern and confusion. What's wrong? She asked, tilting her head slightly as if trying to read him. Nothing, he replied too quickly, stomach sinking as he dismissed the question. He took a breath, trying to reattach the pieces of his shattered focus. It's just, this night has become a lot more than I expected. Mia considered him for a heartbeat longer, then offered a soft, encouraging smile. Come on, it's a celebration. Let us not get caught up in what others think. He admired her resilience, how easily she brushed aside the expectations of the crowd. Could he mirror that strength? As they resumed dancing, music enveloping them in familiarity, Mark felt the tension begin to seep from him. He lost himself in Mia's rhythm, their movements flowing together as if they'd danced this way forever. But that whisper haunted him. What if he really was meant to fulfill Caroline's wish? What if he was destined to step into Charles's shoes, standing in place of the woman he had lost? The thought struck him like a bolt, scattering the warmth he'd begun to nurture. You okay? Mia's voice sounded again, breaking into his thoughts, and this time he met her gaze. "Yeah, I'm fine," he lied again, though he could already feel the cracks expanding, threatening to break the surface. She paused, pulling slightly away to study him, eyes filled with gentle understanding. "Mark, I'm serious. This is your moment too, don't let anyone take that away from you." His heart skipped at her words. How could someone like her see through the fog that surrounded him? A smaller part of him screamed to share everything, the pressure, the guilt, the fear, but how could he twist her role in this? I'm just not sure what I want anymore," he admitted quietly, each word feeling like a small weight lifted from his chest. Her face softened, and she nodded as if she understood something unspoken. "Sometimes it's in the uncertainty that we find our truth. You don't have to have all the answers right now." But the truth gnawed at him still. Did he want to court the idea of love again, even in the shadow of grief and obligation? The prospect felt thrilling and terrifying, both at once. Mark drew Mia closer, feeling the warmth between their bodies, as he measured whether the dance would lead him to closeness or catastrophe. The music picked up a new tempo, and sea of bodies surrounding them shifted, swirling with energy and laughter. Each sound collided with his thoughts, propelling him toward a choice. He had to decide what kind of love, if any, he was ready to embrace. Then, he felt it. That familiar tug at his heart. Maybe it was time to act, to accept the possibility of life beyond the shadows. "Wait," he said suddenly, and as he looked into Mia's eyes, he paused. "I need to know, what is it you see when you look at me? Besides the man tethered to the past?" Her expression changed, serious and thoughtful. "I see a man who is stronger than he realizes. A man with a kind heart, someone who deserves to be happy. You just have to let go of the fear that keeps you rooted in what is familiar." Those words hit like a drumbeat, piercing the fog. The muddled remnants of grief tangled around him felt just a touch lighter. Mark exhaled, feeling the corners of his mouth twitch into a smile. He was ready for this dance, this reckoning. Then, firming his resolve, he leaned forward, a mixture of uncertainty and hope rising in his chest. "Mia, about Charles' wish, what if we made our own?" Just as the words left his lips, a moment of silence lingered, thick and electrifying. Mia's brows furrowed, confusion coloring her face for a split second, but something beautiful sparkled in her eyes. In that delicate moment, the world around them faded away, leaving them suspended in anticipation. What would she say? Would she feel the same thrill mixed with fear? What if they were on the brink of something neither had dared to dream? But before she could answer, a loud commotion caught their attention, drawing the crowd's eyes to the front of the room. "What now?" Mark whispered, turning to see what had disrupted the moment. As the atmosphere shifted again, Mark felt a creeping sense of dread. What could possibly overshadow the feelings he was finally beginning to untangle? "Stay close, Mia," he warned, not knowing what lay ahead, but somehow feeling that everything was about to change. The crowd parted like a sea, revealing chaos at the front. A commotion erupted, a woman's voice, shrill and filled with distress, cut through the music like a knife. "Get away from him. You don't know him." Mark's stomach dropped. He recognized the frantic tone. It was Caroline's sister, Lisa, her face a palette of fear and anger. "What is happening?" Mia whispered, her eyes wide, searching his for answers. "I don't know," he replied, but the gnawing feeling in his gut told him he needed to find out. They edged closer to the turmoil, the atmosphere heavy with tension. As they reached the front, Mark's heart sank further. There, amid the jostling crowd, stood Charles, looking bewildered and vulnerable. The lights reflected off his casual suit, but his expression was anything but composed. "Haven't you done enough?" Lisa shouted at him, pointing an accusatory finger as if she was ready to strike. "You've been toying with her dreams, playing with her heart all this time." Mark exchanged worried glances with Mia, the weight of Lisa's words settling heavily on him. What is she talking about? Mia murmured, clutching his arm. I have no idea, he replied, but the unease coiling in his chest kept him from turning away. He wanted to retreat, to hide from the truth that hung in the air, but he couldn't. Not now. Lisa's voice rose. Caroline told me everything. How dare you ask her for that wish without fully understanding what it means? Mark felt like the ground was shifting beneath him. He glanced at Charles, whose expression shifted from confusion to something resembling regret. It was clear that something deeper lay beneath the surface, and the crowd was hungry for answers. Lisa, please. Charles began, his voice strained. It was never meant to hurt anyone. I just wanted her to be happy. I never thought exactly. Lisa interrupted fiercely. You never think about anyone but yourself. You want to play God with her last moments, shaping them to your vision. The truth seemed to hang uncomfortably in the air as if it threatened to topple everything Mark thought he understood about Caroline's wish. Mia squeezed his arm tighter, her warmth grounding him amidst the spiraling chaos. What did she want? She asked. Despite the turmoil, there was a quiet strength in her. I think. Mark started, but the lump in his throat made it hard to speak. I think she wanted him to find peace. A chance at love again. But is that fair? Mia shot back, her eyes searching his for clarity. To ask you to fill a void left by someone else? Mark opened his mouth, ready to respond, but before he could articulate his thoughts, Charles spoke once more, his voice trembling. I didn't choose this. Caroline she wanted her wish to be made real. No regrets, she said. The truth hit Mark like a wave. Was that why he felt such a heavy responsibility? What if Caroline had feared that she'd take Charles' heart with her? In a moment of clarity, Mark realized this was bigger than him, bigger than Charles or even Caroline. It was about all of them standing there, grappling with love and loss. As clarity washed over him, he turned to Mia, an unexpected determination rising within him. We need to encourage him. There's nothing wrong in wanting to move forward but with respect for the past. What do you mean? The lights dimmed slightly, and Mark's pulse quickened. He breathed deeply. I think we need to help Charles understand what Caroline's wish truly meant. Not to replace, but to remember. Mia's eyes widened, realization flickering across her face. So, we'll guide him? Mark nodded, taking a step forward, ready to reclaim that moment suspended in doubt. But just as he was prepared to address the crowd, an unexpected individual stepped forward from the shadows, a ghost rising from the past. Let me clarify everything, the figure said, drawing gasps from the audience. It was Caroline's father, stepping into the light like he had emerged from a dream. Dad? Mia whispered, stunned. Mark's heart raced again, pulsing with a mix of fear and curiosity. What could he possibly say that hadn't already set this night ablaze with emotion? He reached for Mia's hand, preparing for yet more upheaval. The night was far from over, and everything was about to shift once again. What truth would this man unravel? The moment Caroline's father emerged from the shadows, time seemed to stand still. His presence commanded attention, a somber figure with weary eyes that held the weight of 1,000 memories. The crowd held its breath, unsure of what this unexpected twist would bring. Dad! Mia said again, her voice trembling between disbelief and a desperate longing for connection. Mark squeezed her hand tighter, trying to bolster her strength. The tension in the air thickened as Caroline's father took a step forward, his gaze locking on Charles. You have questions. I know you do, he said, his voice steady but laced with an emotion that mirrored the crowd's unease. And you deserve answers. Why are you here? Lisa asked, her anger bubbling just beneath the surface. You've been gone for so long. What makes you think you can just walk back in now? Because I owe it to Caroline, he replied, his expression softening just a bit. And to all of you. The crowd murmured, the tension shifting from anger to a flicker of curiosity. Mark couldn't help but feel the weight of the man's words. What did he owe? What truths could he possibly share that would unravel the tangled web of emotions strung through this night? Caroline didn't want to leave without saying goodbye, her father continued, his voice filled with a depth of remorse. She wanted her wish to be something more, a bridge, not a barrier. Chaos shifted into a tentative silence, all eyes now locked on him as he spoke of Caroline with a gentle reverence. She believed love should carry on, even when faced with sorrow. She didn't want you all to mourn her loss in isolation but to cherish what she once had. Mark felt the pulse of the crowd shift again, now less a band of individuals and more a collective heart, beating in rhythm with Caroline's legacy. He glanced at Mia, whose face reflected a mixture of hope and confusion. What does that mean? She whispered. It means she wanted you all to take her dreams and weave them into your own lives, he replied, turning his gaze toward Charles, whose face had become a canvas of raw emotion. She passed her love to you, believing you could find happiness again, and that it wouldn't erase what she meant to you. She wanted you to remember. I didn't know, Charles stammered, tears welling in his eyes. I thought I was betraying her. I didn't want to move on. Her father's expression softened even further. No, my boy. Caroline wanted you to live without regret. Life is fragile, and she wanted you to grasp what you can while you still have the chance. Mark felt a swell of emotion. This night was more than just chaos, it was a testament to love's endurance. Caroline's father had unraveled a truth hidden amidst the turmoil, breathing new life into despair. But as Lisa stepped forward, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, she interrupted. What about us? What about her family? Did she forget about us in all of this? No, he assured quietly. She cared deeply for her family. But her last wish was that you all find healing, together. Not to lose each other in her absence. The weight of his words hung heavy in the air. Mark could see the shift happening gradually, like the dawning of a new day. A sense of possibility was blooming. Just then, without warning, the lights flickered back to life, illuminating the contrasting emotions on everyone's faces. A glimmer of hope mixed with heartache. We can share our grief, Caroline's father continued, his voice rising now, and it doesn't have to come at the cost of moving forward. Love is powerful. It connects us all. As he spoke, Mark's heart quickened. Maybe we really can help, maybe there's a path through this, he thought. But before he could respond, Mia turned to him, her eyes sparkling with an unresolved question. What if we fail? What if it's too late? Before Mark could answer, the ground beneath him trembled. A fresh wave of uncertainty hit as someone near the back shouted, "What does it mean to really live again?" The air crackled with unresolved questions as the crowd shifted uneasily, their collective grief hovering as a veil over their paths ahead. Mark took a deep breath, knowing they would have to confront the next step together, whatever form that would take. The night was yet to reveal its final truths. What would come next as they unraveled the legacy of Caroline's wish? Caroline's father took a moment to gather himself, the weight of the crowd's eyes pressing heavily on his shoulders. There was an unspoken understanding that he was the key to unlocking their pain. He glanced at everyone, sensing their collective grief mixed with anxiety, and then he took a deep breath, as if to fortify himself. Living again isn't about forgetting, he began, his voice steady, yet it trembled with old wounds. It's about carrying those we love inside us. It's okay to laugh again. It's okay to love again. It's part of healing. Mark watched as the crowd absorbed his words. Parents held their children a little closer, friends leaned on one another for support. The atmosphere shifted from brittle tension to a fragile hope. But how do we do that? Lisa asked, her voice softer, like the edge of a wave gently lapping onto the shore. How do we honor her and still move forward? By sharing her story, Caroline's father replied, stepping closer to her. You all know pieces of Caroline, fragments of her laughter, her spirit, the love she poured into everything she did. It's time to share all of that, to let her legacy live on through you. Mark felt a warmth spreading through him at the thought. What if we start right now? He thought. What if we began to share the good memories of Caroline? Maybe that's the bridge. Mia nudged him, her expression lit with a sudden inspiration. Mom used to tell us stories about her adventures, remember? We could each share our favorite moment with her. The crowd seemed to ripple with energy. One by one, they began to recall memories, voices soft at first, then building as laughter began to punctuate their sorrow. It was like sunlight breaking through the clouds on a stormy day. I remember when Caroline organized that big charity event, Mark said, a smile creeping onto his face. She made every detail perfect. And when it started to rain? She just rolled up her sleeves, grabbed some umbrellas and kept dancing, dragging everyone along with her. No one can forget how sparkling she looked in that moment. A soft chuckle echoed from somewhere in the back. Others chimed in, weaving their own stories into the tapestry of Caroline's life. I remember her singing that silly song about cleaning out the garage. Mia recalled, her eyes shining brightly. She made it so much fun. I thought we were going to break something, but we just ended up creating an absolute mess. She loved that garage, and we loved her for it. The stories tumbled out like a stream, each one a testament to Caroline's spirit. It turned into a symphony of shared laughter, rekindled joy mingling with the sorrow. Caroline's father stood still, watching the faces around him soften, transform as they embraced their memories. He stepped back to let them bask in the swirling emotions. But then, just as the collective heart of the crowd began to soar, a voice broke through again. This one more somber, a stark contrast to the joyful reminiscences. But what if we can't keep the memory alive? What if we forget? The crowd fell silent, that chilling question hanging heavily in the air. Mia turned toward Mark, uncertainty etched on her face. What if sharing these stories isn't enough? The uncertainty loomed, promising that the night held more revelations, more questions yet to be answered. Would the stories be a temporary balm, or a lasting bridge to healing? Mark's heart raced as he looked around, sensing the storm of emotions rising again. Was it really possible to carry Caroline's legacy without losing themselves? As the crowd buzzed with doubt and hope, he felt it, the heartbeat of possibility echoing through their shared histories. But one question lingered, unspoken and urgent: what would it take to truly remember and honor Caroline in a world that kept moving forward? The air was thick with uncertainty. Mark scanned the crowd, the expressions of those around him shifting from laughter to worry. He felt a familiar ache in his chest. The laughter had been a salve, but that question hung in the air like a cloud ready to burst. Maybe it starts with one more story? He suggested, his voice breaking the silence. It was shaky, but he hoped it would guide them back to safer ground. He cleared his throat, focusing on the faces in front of him. I have one, a memory that sticks with me. Everyone turned their attention back to him, leaning in with curiosity, eager to grasp onto something tangible. It was last summer, he began, his heart clenching at the memory. Caroline and I were volunteering at that children's summer camp. She had this way of lighting up a room just by being there. He paused, reliving the moment. There was this little boy who was struggling to connect with the other kids. He was shy, always hiding behind the craft table. Caroline, without a second thought, sat down next to him. She just started making silly faces and turned the entire crafting session into a game. Mark's smile grew wider as he recalled the sound of laughter echoing through the camp. Before we knew it, the kid was in stitches. He jumped up, ran to join the others, and Caroline was right there, cheering him on. She didn't just teach him to engage, she showed him he was worth their attention. A few people chuckled, and he could see the nods of understanding. Each story sparked another. Do you remember the time she baked 50 cupcakes for Grandma's birthday? Mia chimed in, her voice lighter now. She had frosting everywhere. I thought we'd never clean that kitchen. The crowd burst into laughter again, the tension starting to fade. Or when she dressed up as a pirate for Halloween. Lisa added, her sunken eyes flickering with life. She was so into it, she made up this entire backstory showing up at the door demanding candy. Who says you can't have fun as an adult? I still remember the day she convinced us all to go to the amusement park. Mia said, excitement blooming in her face. She was terrified of the roller coasters but made us all go on them. That first drop? I've never heard such a loud scream only to find her laughing the whole way through. The stories began to flow again, building momentum, the energy in the room shifting back toward joy. As laughter rolled through the crowd, Caroline's father looked on, pride swelling in his chest. Yet a shadow crossed his face, a flicker of concern as the earlier question still lingered like a specter. How could they ensure these moments weren't forgotten? Just as laughter had replaced the heaviness, a sudden realization hit Mark. Maybe the answer lies in making new memories. He spoke loudly, feeling the spark of inspiration. What if we honor Caroline's spirit by creating something in her name? A scholarship, a community project, or a yearly picnic? Mia suggested, her enthusiasm infectious. The same way she did. Every year, we gather here, tell stories, and celebrate. A wave of agreement rippled through the crowd, excitement brewing. The room began buzzing with ideas, visions for a future that still held Caroline's spirit. With the air thick again with anticipation, a question floated up once more, catching Mark off guard. But how do we keep it alive, year after year? What happens when we start to forget? Mark felt his heart drop again. Here they were, filled with possibilities, only to be reminded of the very essence of their fears. As they debated, plans began forming, but a weight pressed on him, something essential still felt missing. He knew it wasn't just about gathering for stories, it was about something deeper, a promise they had to keep living. As they transformed their painful memories into hopeful plans, he asked himself, could this truly be enough to honor Caroline? Or was it just the beginning of a much bigger journey? The crowd's hopeful energy hung in the air like a balloon on the edge of bursting. Mark felt the tension dissolve as they shared laughter and ideas. But his own worry brewed in the back of his mind. Was this enough? Just then, he heard a faint whisper from the back. But what if she told us something we've missed? Mark turned sharply, the question latching onto his thoughts like a wildflower breaking through concrete. What secrets had Caroline left behind, waiting to be unveiled? Would that be the key to truly remembering? The room settled into a hushed stillness, the echo of the whispered question lingering like a ghost. Mark felt the weight of every curious gaze on him, waiting for a response, expecting him to connect the dots. What could Caroline have said that they hadn't captured yet? A ripple of uncertainty spread across the group. Mark's heart raced. He desperately wanted to give them an answer, to quell their fears. But all he had was a deep-seated feeling that there was more to Caroline's spirit than they'd uncovered with their laughter and plans. That's a great question, he said slowly, trying to gather his thoughts. She was always full of surprises, wasn't she? He glanced at the familiar faces around him, remembering all the times Caroline's laughter had lit up their lives. Maybe she left us something to find? Like a treasure hunt? Jake laughed, but there was a nervous edge to it that suggested he was half serious. Mark smiled at the idea, but it sparked something deeper in him. What if Caroline had really intended for them to find something? Each smile in the room reflected their hope, yet Mark felt the tightening in his chest once more. What if she wanted us to look beyond the typical memories? To dig for something more meaningful? He paced slowly, trying to articulate his thoughts. Things that perhaps she believed we could learn from. Messages to guide us through our sadness? Mia leaned forward, her eyes darting around the room. What do you mean? Like a letter or a video? Exactly. Mark exclaimed, the idea igniting a flicker of hope in him. Maybe she left behind something that would reveal how she truly felt about us, her thoughts about love, life, about leaving us. The crowd murmured in agreement, but the anxiety stayed. What if they found something that would hurt more than help? The mix of excitement and trepidation was palpable. Or, Lisa interjected, or maybe she told someone about her wish, something we haven't even considered. Mark's heart skipped. There was no telling what Caroline had shared in the quiet moments over coffee or after a long day. We could reach out to the people she talked to the most. They might hold pieces we need to understand her better. We owe it to her to try. I'll call her old college friends, Mia offered, her enthusiasm rekindled. They'd love to share stories too. Mark felt a swell of gratitude. They were starting to act like Caroline, moving forward, seeking joy even at the heart of pain. Yet a part of him remained uncertain. What if we don't find anything? He asked, voice tinged with worry. What if all we uncover are reminders of our loss? The crowd paused. An electric silence pervaded the air. That question hung, as heavy and unsettling as the last. A gentle voice broke through the elder, Mrs. Thompson, who watched them all grow. Sometimes, she said softly, the greatest gift is learning to live in a way that honors those we've lost. Mark felt a weight lift slightly. Mrs. Thompson's wisdom resonated within him, wrapping around the anxiety like a warm blanket. Maybe we find Caroline in new ways, through community, through telling her stories, and now, discovering more about her. As hopeful murmurs shifted through the room, a new energy pulsed. Just then, another question emerged from somewhere behind him, one he hadn't anticipated. What if we never truly let her go? Mark's heart sank. What did that mean? Were they trying to hold on too tightly? Could releasing her spirit lead to forgetting? It was a complex emotional tightrope they'd begun to walk, and he could feel the tug of those worries colliding with the warmth of hope. They might just be starting the journey of uncovering secrets and connections that would keep Caroline not just in their memories, but alive in their hearts. With the air thickening at the uncharted possibilities, he found himself asking, what if uncovering her secrets was the key to understanding how to carry her love with us? The room fell silent again, expectation hanging in the air. What could they discover next, and could those discoveries lead to something completely unexpected? The atmosphere buzzed with tension, a mixture of anxiety and anticipation wrapping around Mark like a tightly coiled spring. Every gaze was glued to him, everyone hanging on his words as if he were about to unveil some secret truth. He took a deep breath, searching for clarity in the whirlwind of emotions swirling in his chest. We have to take a step forward, he finally said, confidence rising. Caroline wanted us to live, not just remember. Lisa nodded, the lines on her forehead deepening as she considered his words. But how do we balance that? We're still grieving. Grief and love don't have to be separate, Mark replied, feeling the warmth of newfound resolve pooling within him. We can carry both. Mia's right, he continued, turning to her. Maybe we reach out to those who knew her best. Find out what she said in secret moments, those sightings, those whispers of her heart. Her eyes lit up. Yes. The college friends, her teachers, they may have stories that can guide us. The crowd murmured in agreement, a flickering sense of adventure igniting in them. After all, seeking to rediscover Caroline was a way to unearth the love she had freely shared, an opportunity to intertwine their own lives with hers, not replace it but enrich it. Just then, Charles stepped forward, his face now softer, away from the rigid mask he wore earlier. I'll help. I have old family friends and even some of Caroline's journal entries. I think her words can guide us too. Mark felt the room shift at Charles' admission. They were becoming more than their grief, they were a group on the brink of something transformative. Together, they would weave a tapestry of memories, laughter, and lessons that honored Caroline. Then let us lay the groundwork for our legacy together, Mark suggested, his voice gaining strength. Over the next few weeks, we can plan gatherings where we share moments and the stories we uncover. We will join forces and make something beautiful from our heartache. We're not alone anymore. Cheers erupted, a wave of voices rising in agreement, a chorus of shared purpose flooding the space. Mia squeezed his hand tightly, her eyes glistening. This is what she would have wanted. A celebration of her life, of love. Let us do this, then. Lisa added, grinning through her tears. Let us show Caroline that we are more connected than ever. Mark took a moment to breathe, looking around as warmth settled over everyone. Suddenly, the burden of his own grief started to lift, like a weight releasing from his chest. Together, they could blend their grief with joy, facing both in tandem. He began to feel Caroline in the moment, her spirit illuminating their hearts. As the crowd began to disperse, talking excitedly amongst themselves about what was to come, Mark felt a quiet resolve. Taking Mia's hand, they walked outside into the night air, where the stars twinkled brightly above. Are you ready for this? She asked, her voice filled with the excitement of possibility. Mark turned to look at her, a full heart filled with gratitude. Together, we can keep her spirit alive. And who knows, maybe something beautiful is waiting for us both. Her smile beamed, lighting up the night. And this time, the stories we share will carry her legacy forward while we embrace what is to come. The moon hung high above them, casting a soft glow, echoing the warmth blooming in their hearts. This wasn't an end, it was a new beginning. As they stepped forward, hand in hand, Mark felt the threads of the past stitching into the fabric of the future. They were all part of something bigger now, an evolving story of love and connection, the very essence of living on in someone's memory. And in that beautiful, poignant moment, amid laughter and hope, he realized that life after loss wasn't a betrayal, it was a celebration of life's impermanence, a chance to dance through the shadows with radiant light. Now, as they prepared for tomorrow, he felt a sense of urgent belief echoed in every fiber of his being. They were alive, still, and there was much to share and discover. So, I urge you. Now, don't let this journey stop here, join the family, we are only beginning. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss these exclusive stories. Leave a like now and help the algorithm bring this joy to more hearts. Comment your reactions and share your own stories, your voice matters here. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel this transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. We are all in this together.